From almost the early part of the first decade of 21st century, there was a massive noise in India that we must have a dedicated law on data protection. But somehow it was not really seeing the light of the day. It ultimately took a litigation before the Supreme Court, Justice Puttaswamy versus Union of India, where finally the government said we would want to come up with a law on data protection, where Indians are vomiting data about their personal, professional, social lives on the internet, on AI, without thinking of the legal ramifications. In this new cyber world order where cybercrime golden age has begun, the need is even more heightened that we should go ahead and protect our own data. The year 2024 was crucial as the world lost more than $8 trillion to cybersecurity and cybercrime. We want the personal data of Indians to be protected, and we want to create a robust, sound, secure data ecosystem in the Indian context.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to K.R. Mangalam University's brand new podcast, Executive Edge, a podcast where we dive deep into the minds of top professionals from across the industries. From law to technology, from innovation to leadership, we are here to explore the principles that are shaping the success in today's world. In today's inaugural episode, we have the immense honor of speaking to one of the globally recognized legal experts in digital security. Our guest is a distinguished advocate at the Supreme Court of India and the Delhi High Court with a career spanning over the decades. Let us all warmly welcome Dr. Pavan Duggal. Dr. Pavan Duggal, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much for taking out your valuable time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you on your inaugural session of the podcast.
We're very, very happy that you're here as our first guest today.
It's a pleasure. Please.
So, Dr. Duggal, before we dive into the core topics where you hold your expertise in, would you please tell us about your background and your experience?
Well, I'm a specialist in the area of cyber law, cybersecurity law, artificial intelligence law, mobile law, and emerging technologies law. So basically, I work on the intersection of law and technology. I'm a practicing advocate in the Supreme Court for the last, 36 years. I have been working in this area of intersection of law and technology for now almost 29 years. And one has gone through a journey where one has seen various phases of the growth of the digital ecosystem and how the legal frameworks have been evolving over a period of time. I worked extensively outside India, worked with international organizations like the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, UNESCO, and the International Telecommunications Union, as also Globethics. Here I've been advising a lot of governments, including the central government and state governments, on a variety of issues on cyber legalities. In addition, I've also been associated with various other stakeholders in the corporate ecosystem and in the academia. I have been founding various organizations. I am the chairman of the International Commission on Cybersecurity Law. We look at a comparative analysis of how the legal jurisprudence on cybersecurity is evolving. I'm also the chief executive of Artificial Intelligence Law Hub. We, for the last 9 years, have been tracking down how the legal frameworks on AI need to evolve. And of course, one has also been running an online platform called cyberlawuniversity.com, where I run 37 courses online. And these courses have already been done in the last 5 years by more than 32,000 professionals from 176 countries, speaking 53 national languages. I write extensively. I've written 200 books in the last 29 years on various issues of cyber.
Absolutely so. So how did you find your interest in cyber law?
Well, I'm a history student and I had got no connection with technology. I passed out my history from St. Stephen's College and then went in and started doing my law, finished my law. And in 1988, I began as a normal civil and corporate lawyer in the Delhi district courts. And it's early 90s that I got some clients who were into software. That's got my interest triggered in technology. 1995, internet was commercially introduced in the country. I got introduced to the internet. And after a couple of months of madness, I quickly realized that this is the medium of the future, and that the quicker I start focusing on the legal ramifications, the better it is. So I started focusing on cyber. At that time, there was no cyber law anywhere in the world. There was no work being happening. So started working with international organizations. Then United Nations passed the unilateral model law on electronic commerce, asking countries to come up with national laws on cyberspace. Then I started working with Indian government, with various ministries. I have been now working with the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology for the last more than 24 years, advising them on various aspects of cyber law. And it only began only with cyber. Then the Information Technology Act 2000 came up, and I started getting work in that space. Then cybercrime was coming up, so we said it's a logical corollary that I should also go into cybercrime regulation. So I was the counsel for India's first cybercrime conviction in 2003, where we represented the complainant. And then slowly we said, let's expand the bouquet. So I started focusing more on cybersecurity and then emerging technologies. So it's been a distinctive kind of a journey, but it's purely self-help, self-learning journey. Well, a history student having no connection with technology has now landed up into this space where we are only dealing with technology and its technological nuances and the legalities connected therewith on a day-to-day basis.
Right. You are considered a global thought leader in cyber law and have been acknowledged as the world's top 4 cyber lawyers. How do you think the cyber law has evolved in India as compared to the other countries over the past few years?
Well, cyber law in India is now 24 years old.
Okay.
When we enacted the cyber law, the Information Technology Act 2000, neither the government, nor the parliament, nor the stakeholders had the slightest of clue of what they were passing. Everybody thought it's a small e-commerce enabling legislation, so be it. But the way the legislation was drafted, it began to start having its paramount impact after it got passed. And over a period of time, the Indian cyber law has emerged as one of the 3 most significant laws in the history of independent India. The other ones being the Constitution and the penal laws. Why? In India, if you do anything concerning using of computers, computer systems, computer networks, computer resources, communication devices, as also data and information in the electronic form, then you are covered under this law. And this is a law which has only got amended once in 2008. So it has surely transcended itself from just being an e-commerce enabling legislation to India's mother umbrella legislation on the digital format. When we amended this law in 2008 after the Mumbai attacks, we enhanced the elements and embellished them on cybersecurity. We increased the coverage of cybercrime under the law. More significantly, we also added various new provisions which were earlier non-existent. For example, the provision for seeking unlimited damages by way of compensation under Section 43A of the IT Act. After that, technology has been moving very quickly. The law has not been amended on its own yet, but due to the massive powers given to the government under Section 87 of the IT Act, the central government has been coming up with various rules and regulations so as to give effect and implement the various provisions of the IT Act. So the government of India has come up with the Information Technology Rules 2011, and then they got supplemented by the Information Technology Rules 2021. You have the Information Technology Directions 2022, and now you have a new set of legislation. Well, when we began cyber law, we thought here's our umbrella legislation, and henceforth our approach will be that let's start coming up with small verticals under this bigger umbrella. So when we made this umbrella, we made it very, very broad. I call it a typical Bollywood masala film legislation. Like a typical Bollywood masala film has got various masalas, the Indian cyber law has also got various masalas. Whether it's a masala for electronic authentication, whether it's for cyber crime, whether it's for issues pertaining to liability and otherwise. So we made a very broad framework. So consequently, because of this broad framework, the government was able to come up with the Aadhaar Act 2016 as a subset of the umbrella coverage provided by the IT Act, and we came up with the Aadhaar Amendment Act 2019. Well, from almost the early part of the first decade of 21st century, there was a massive noise in India that we must have a dedicated law on data protection. But somehow it was not really seeing the light of the day. It ultimately took a litigation before the Supreme Court, Justice Puttaswamy versus Union of India, where finally the government said we would want to come up with a law on data protection. And after 5 years of deliberation, the government passed the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. It's still not implemented because the rules have just come in and they are being in the draft stage for public comments. But then this is also one other secondary legislation that we've come up under the broad umbrella coverage of the Indian cyber law. So by and large, I think it's been an exciting journey. I would have been far more happier if we were able to go ahead and amend this law more frequently to make it more topical, more relevant, in accordance with the passage of technology. We have not been able to do so. So consequently, we find that the law is right now stuck in stone. Well, because it's still stuck up in some portion in history, whereas technology is moving rapidly every single day. And now with the coming of generative artificial intelligence, certain things have become very, very apparent. The Indian cyber law needs to be embellished. It's like an old crown that we've now discovered. Now we need to polish that. We need to put more jewels in that. And we need to make it more bright. For that, it's time that India needs to come up with a dedicated law on cybersecurity, like a lot of other countries are coming up with. We also need to come up with a law on artificial intelligence. Why? Because Indians have started using artificial intelligence like no one's business. And Indians somehow have this remarkable impression that this new generative artificial intelligence is the new Jadoo ki Jhappi, the new magical wand that they'll just touch and lo and behold, all their problems will be solved. And consequently, India is now seeing two remarkable revolutions which are necessitating further developments under the Indian cyber law. The first revolution that I am seeing for the last few years is the great Indian vomiting revolution, where Indians are vomiting data about their personal, professional, social lives on the internet, on AI, without thinking of the legal ramifications. And the second, equally significant but a more quieter revolution is the great Indian recording revolution. Indians are recording everything for a variety of purposes. And once you record, you forget about it. And lo and behold, it goes into somebody else's access and you are in a bigger problem. So bottom line is, given these two revolutions taking place, it's time that we must really go ahead and come up with more dedicated laws on cybersecurity, on artificial intelligence. India needs to be a thought leader globally as far as cyber law is concerned. The new UN Convention on preventing the misuse of information and communication technologies for criminal purposes has now been laid before the General Assembly of the United Nations.
Dr. Duggal, you just told about how people or corporates, for that matter, are thoughtlessly adopting generative AI technologies. Do you think this is one of the main reasons why we suffer such massive amount of data losses?
Well, problem in India is, and that's a global problem as well, that people tend to believe what they are seeing. They don't manage to read the fine print. Now, if you are, for example, giving your personal information to generative AI platform, you forgot to read the terms and conditions where they say, please don't give us any of your personal data. Why? Because whatever data you give them, number one, comes in the public domain. Number two, is going to be used by them for the purposes of further training. So effectively, you and your data become guinea pigs in the laboratory of these big tech giants. So my suggestion is that people need to be more cautious and careful when they are sharing the data. Actually, the time has now come, post-COVID, that we must now be alive of this new sociological surroundings that we have actually entered into. It's a new age. I call it the new cyber world order. In this new cyber world order, where cybercrime golden age has begun, the need is even more heightened that we should go ahead and protect our own data. But if we are going to be casual, flippant in sharing our data, then logical corollary is that this data is going to be misused. And that being so, you will find cybersecurity breaches happening left, right, and center. The year 2024 was crucial as the world lost more than $8 trillion to cybersecurity and cybercrime. But that figure is not stopping. By the end of 2025, we are expecting that this figure should cross more than $10.5 trillion.
That's massive.
In addition, the ransomware attacks have really increased massively. 2023, every 11 seconds, a company was becoming a victim of a ransomware attack. By the end of 2024, it's now only 9 seconds before a company becomes a victim of a ransomware attack. So now cybersecurity breach is a given normal. In fact, integral part of this new cyber world order is that this cybersecurity breaches will be a daily companion. And that cybercrime is the new normal. We will have to adjust to these new normals very quickly. So the important issue is not that you are hacked or that your data is breached. The important issue is how quickly can you come back to normalcy after getting attacked. That's why the focus on cyber resilience has assumed massive significance. That's the reason even the European Union has now come up with a new legislation on cyber resilience. So people need to be very, very careful. You only need to share information on a need-to-know basis, and you need to be studiously careful and protective about your personal data. Because once that data is gone and it's compromised, then you are prejudiced for life. You are going to be in a very, very prejudicial position.
Absolutely.
And your personal privacy, your data privacy will stand compromised.
Right. Talking about the challenges, 2025 is the new year. As an expert, what do you think would be the three major challenges that we would be facing when it comes to the cybersecurity?
Well, the year 2025 is promising a large number of bombshells, and almost each bombshell has its own respective relevance. But when I look at from the landscape of cybersecurity and cyber law, I'm very clear that 2025 is going to be the year of cybersecurity breaches powered by artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Why? Because now cyber criminals have also realized that if they can avoid dirtying their hands and get the breaching of the security of systems done by AI or the algorithm, it's going to be far more better. Also, the law enforcement agencies do not have the wherewithal to go ahead and identify these kinds of cybersecurity breaches. So we should see a large number of these AI-enabled cybersecurity breaches, which are going to supplement an already existing trend of cybercrime as a service powered by artificial intelligence. That's one big thing that I'm seeing. The second big thing that I'm actually seeing is that AI is going to make quantum jumps, quantum leaps. My problem is most of the people still think, AI is another 15, 20 years later. Sorry. AI, the way it's developing, it's growing at such a fast pace that you will have to take charge and keep up with pace. Otherwise, in the next 1 or 2 years, we are now already talking of the development of super intelligence. This is a new project that OpenAI has started, where they are saying, and they started in 2023, where they said that give us 4 years, and we will now come up with a super intelligence that will be intelligent than the cumulative intelligence of humanity as a whole. Now, once the AI is reaching to that tipping point, the need for more effective regulation and restriction and even ethical usage of AI becomes of topmost priority. So the year 2025 will also be an year where there'll be more focus on AI regulation, on ethical use of AI, responsible AI, and to ultimately work in the direction to show that artificial intelligence does not go ahead and prejudicially impact the existential elements of humanity. So it does not really present really effective challenges to human rights apart from their digital rights. That's the second big thing that I see in 2025. The third biggest thing that I'm seeing in 2025 is the fact that we are going to see a predominant increase in the quantum and size of the darknet. Darknet already is a deep, dark underbelly of the internet. But most of the law enforcement agencies don't want to talk about it. Why? Because they do not have the wherewithal to go ahead and crack the attribution puzzle on the darknet. Today, when I go onto the darknet, I'm anonymous. You're anonymous. And in that world of anonymity, there's a culture of trust. And that's why cybercrime is prospering. Now, darknet is going at a more phenomenal pace. And as political developments take place in 2025, I'm expecting more and more people will start using the darknet not just only for criminal purposes, but also for legitimate purposes, for protecting their privacy, for protecting their freedom of speech and expression. So that's one big thing that I'm actually seeing. There'll be other supplemental elements like I see quantum computing coming in a big way, and therefore the legalities of quantum computing will assume more significance in 2025. Blockchain and Internet of Things are quietly moving, but very steadily moving, and I see more developments taking place. I actually see an ecosystem in 2025 where the world powers and the governments are going to be forced to come up with new legal frameworks to deal with emerging technologies and their potential challenges. But cybercrime will reign large. The golden age of cybercrime has already begun and will be with us for the next many decades. So the onus will be on how the law enforcement agencies really go ahead and deal with the entire issue of regulation of cybercrime. But again, these are some golden jewels that I can pick up. There are a lot of these small jewels and diamonds that are laying on the table as far as 2025 is concerned. Each one of them will impact the digital users one way or the other. And I think the writing that's coming on the wall is very clear for users. Learn to protect your data, otherwise your data is gone once for all, leaving you to be in a very prejudicial position in terms of enjoyment of your personal privacy and your data privacy. That's one big thing. I'm also going to be seeing a lot of activity in space this year, where there'll be a lot of cybersecurity breaches potentially happening on space vehicles, space satellites. So clearly, countries are in a hungry mode. Countries are saying, I'm no longer just satisfied with my national sovereignty. I want to expand my cyber sovereignty, which will be applicable to the entire internet per se. And now countries are talking about space sovereignty, which is to say that my sovereign interests are going to be equally protected in outer space. So we are going to see a lot of exciting new legal frameworks, principles, doctrines, and theories being put up. There's going to be a lot of permutation and combination, but cybersecurity will continue to keep on being the topmost priority for the world, and the world will continue to keep on bleeding thanks to the various new innovative approaches that cyber criminals are adopting for the purposes of breaching the cybersecurity of computer networks and the critical information infrastructure.
When you have just mentioned about the cyber crimes increasing day by day, and over the years, you can see the staggering growth in it. How do you think that the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, which has just drafted the Digital Personal Data Protection Rules 2025, will it be able to help the people to understand more about this and to be more responsible about their data? If you can just explain to our viewers what exactly does that protection rules hold?
Well, India began its journey towards data protection almost 15 years back. It's taken India 5 or 6 years to come up with a new legislation. And finally, on 11th of August 2023, the Parliament passed the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. It got published in the Gazette, but there's one provision which says it's going to come into effect on such a date as the government will notify. Till today, the said DPDP Act has not come into force. The reason for this is very simple. The government wants to come up with new rules under the DPDP Act. So recently the government has put up the draft Digital Personal Data Protection Rules 2025 for public comment till 18th of February 2025. Wherein all stakeholders can comment on the said rules. These rules are very broad in their ambit and are aiming to clarify the entire issue of data protection. Let's listen to certain basic ground realities on data protection. Because we don't yet have a law on data protection, our data is already being misused. You and I keep on getting calls, right? On our phones from unknown numbers, from spammers who are wanting to offer all kinds of services. Now that's happening because there's no law on data protection in the country. But once this DPDP Act gets implemented, it's going to be a game-changing legislation. Why? Because it's the only legislation in the history of independent India where they've said that if you contravene the provisions of this law, then you will be fined rupees 250 crores per one contravention. So assuming you have 4 contraventions under this DPDP Act, technically you can be fined 1,000 crore rupees. This kind of humongous fine doesn't go to private entity. It does not go to the complainant. It goes to the government in the form of Consolidated Fund of India. And if you don't pay the government, the law says no problem. We consider it as areas of land revenue, which means that the government will have the power to go ahead and seize, attach your properties, sell them, and recover the said monies. So for the first time, this legislation has understood the main fear in the minds of Indians. You see, Indians are very, very innovative. We love the Indian Jugaad school of management. We love to do Jugaad. But then this law says, okay, you want to do Jugaad, go ahead and do that. But if you are going to be forced to pay 250 crore rupees damages, let's see how your Jugaad goes. And that's where this legislation is going to be game changing. And already it's brought in a lot of concern, a lot of attention from all stakeholders. The draft rules now have given more clarity on issues pertaining to parental consent. Now, for example, if you are a child below 18 years, then under law you do not have the ability to give consent. In which case, if your data is going to be collected or processed, then the consent has to be taken from your parent or guardian.
Right.
But then how do you determine when somebody logs in, whether he's a child or whether he's a major? With now increasing propensity of children to enhance their age levels, it's going to be very difficult. And you are required to now give a notice to the parents or to other users saying, hey guys, this is the main purposes for which I will be collecting your data and processing your personal data. Please give me your consent. If it's only once you give me the consent, will I be able to collect and process your data, otherwise not. If I do that beyond this, I get exposed to this 250 crore rupees fine. So the entire issue of age verification processes for children have been elaborately defined under this law. When we passed this law, the previous versions of this law had talked about data localization, which means that the data must be present in India. But when the law got passed, it got very much diluted. But under now the DPDP rules 2025, we have now an additional new level of data localization in the country. The government says it's going to appoint a committee, and that committee will determine what kind of personal information needs to be within India, and then that information shall be within India. So I think it's a logical step because, see, I don't want Indians and their data to go outside India for a logical purpose, because this is going to be used, misused, abused by all kinds of state and non-state actors. And that being so, the Indian data principles are likely to become guinea pigs. But if you're going to insist that the data of Indians remains in India, then whatever happens, those entities will be still subject to the legal jurisprudence and the laws prevailing for the time being in force in India. And that being so, Indians will have more effective remedies. So these are some aspects. The government has also been given the power, and it's exercised that power in the draft rules, to exempt certain kinds of governmental entities from the applicability of this bill. Also, the government has sought to exempt the health professionals, people who are giving us instantaneous health care, that they should be exempt from the provisions of the DPDP Act. It's got a large number of other issues. There are some positives, there are some negatives. For example, there's no reference on cybersecurity in the said draft rules. And you cannot talk of data protection without talking about cybersecurity. So you will have to specify parameters of cybersecurity. Yes, the rules talk about reasonable security safeguards. But then rather than clarifying what those safeguards are, the rules have left it as vague as the legislation itself, with the result that it's going to lead to a great kind of a conflict in terms of interpretation. People will interpret these rules in different manners. And that's why there's a need for more clarity. So hopefully that clarity will come in after the public comments period is over. But all said and done, the objective of this law is very clear. We want the personal data of Indians to be protected, and we want to create a robust, sound, secure data ecosystem in the Indian context. Now, how much we will be able to achieve is something that time will be able to tell. But yes, more clarity under the DPDP rules 2025 is going to help us walk in that particular direction.
But do you really think that the government is taking enough initiatives when it comes to promoting and educating our youngsters and kids nowadays who have direct access to social media in terms of data responsibility? Because wherever I see, I mean, if I have seen, I don't see most of the youngsters don't even know exactly what kind of an implication, it can have if your data gets into the wrong hands. And I feel government somewhere might be trying really hard to, spread that awareness. But then I still feel that there can be more and more initiatives taken in order to empower our youth and try to make them understand how important it is to be responsible for your own data.
I can't agree more with you. Why? Because the government has done a number of good, important initiatives. But let's look at the facts. We are the most populous nation in the world, 140 crores and counting. With this huge quantum of people, of the population that's there in India, there'll be need for continuous capacity building. Now, unfortunately, with COVID coming in, most of the Indians were forced to come on to the digital bandwagon, including children. Well, classes were happening online, right? But then the fact is, we've actually thrust these children into the dark, deep undersea of the internet without even teaching them how they can swim, how they can face these challenges that the internet poses. And that's the reason why, there's not much awareness about cyber hygiene or cyber resilience or good cyber ethical practices. So everybody is on their own. So the government is doing a good work, but I think it needs to do more in terms of enhancing the capacities of people. I think service providers, intermediaries have a very important role, that they must go ahead and educate their users. They are here not just to make money, but also to make sure that their users and their rights are adequately protected. And finally, I think everybody has to contribute. I believe that time has come where we must start adopting cybersecurity as a way of life. Sorry, I can't say that I can do anything on my device, but if something wrong happens, the government is responsible. Sorry, the government is doing its job, but you have to do your own job as well. You will have to adopt cyber hygiene as part of your day-to-day activities. You can't be reckless when you're sharing information. And people are losing money left, right, and center. I mean, recently one of our clients had lost more than 18 crore rupees because he became a victim of a digital arrest. We have these newly emerging deepfake matters where deepfake videos are coming in with such suaveness, with such technical finesse that the naked eye is not able to go ahead and distinguish the content as to whether it's original or whether it's been made by deepfake AI. So in a scenario like this, the only mantra for everybody is more capacity building, more self-protection. I actually believe that we are right now at the center point of the digital Kurukshetra warfield. Why? Because we are going to be attacked from a 360-degree view. And therefore, we need to adopt a Suraksha Kavach, a kind of a security cover, by means of which we can try to prevent these attacks from prejudicially impacting us and our data. And I think this Suraksha cover has to be, got to be adopting cyber security, cyber resilience as part of our day-to-day activities. And let's start sensitizing our family members, friends, about how they can potentially become victims of cyber. And one more thing, I think the time has come where Indians need to slightly get off the internet. Why? Because in India, most of the people who are connected to the internet is their life. I think life is much beyond the internet. The time has come to start sensitizing and encouraging families to have internet-free weekends, or at least an internet-free Sunday, so that at least quality time of families can be spent together, and also sensitize the children about the immense dangers that pedophiles are facing in the ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And how youngsters, whether it's males or females, can protect their digital present and their digital future in the coming times. And everybody has to contribute: families, parents, individuals, schools. I've been telling for the last many years that the time has come where you must start inculcating cyber law and cyber security as an integral part of the school curriculum from the first standard onwards. Why? Because you have started giving devices to children at very young ages. Today, you look at a typical household, the child would not want to eat something till such time he's shown some kind of a cartoon on the phone and otherwise. And children know how to get their way done. So, in a scenario like this, it's time that we should start understanding that somewhere in this entire ecosystem, the childhood of Indian children has started getting lost. We must try to recover, protect, and preserve the childhood of Indian children. And we must have an added responsibility to sensitize users about different emerging kinds of cyber crimes, artificial intelligence crimes, new challenges and issues that the internet is constantly throwing up.
I think I couldn't agree more with you, Dr. Duggal, when you said that the children have lost their innocence. But I think parents have also fell into the trap of social media, that they have kind of isolated themselves from the whole family bonding. And what we right now see is a house with like 5 members, say, and then all of them on their phones in different rooms. I think that sort of a technology really makes you question whether you really want it. Is it really that important for you to adopt something of this sort and, kind of desolate from the human bond? What do you think? I mean, what are your views on that?
I think the Indian family ethos seems to be evaporating, and internet to a large extent is responsible for the same. Well, with different people all having different phones in the same house, not talking, but trying to befriend other people online is a massive irony of sorts. I believe the time has come that we need to reinstate and re-emphasize the significance of family time, because this time is never going to come back. Number two, and online, I mean, we may be getting some kind of a vanity or some kind of a kick by getting so many followers, but none of these followers will be with you on your hospital bed once you go to the hospital. None of these friends will be available for a call to help you in a time of crisis when they are. So we'll have to start thinking that internet is a part of life. Internet is not life. Unfortunately, most of the Indians think that internet is life.
It's like,
Internet is only a mere tool that we can use. Now it's really up to us. It's like the typically Rampuri knife. You can use the Rampuri knife for cutting a vegetable or for killing someone else. That's your choice how you choose that knife. The internet is an exact same analogy. So it's up to us how much do we want to be immersed in the internet, or do we need to see more practical stuff? And the more you are scrolling on your social media, the more dull you're becoming, the more and the higher the chances that you'll get Parkinson and other diseases. Why? Because you are doing things that you are not supposed to be doing. You are doing things that the nature didn't really want you to do. And then if you're doing these exercises, it might give you some kind of a temporary kind of a high. But ultimately, long run, it's not going to be of any use. Therefore, the need for more quality time in family, for reinforcing family bonding, becomes of crucial necessity. Law cannot help in that regard. It has to be coming from within. And I think parents have to lead by example. Now, most of the parents say, sorry, my children don't listen to me. Now, that's okay, fine, they don't listen to you. But if you start emulating a particular behavior, then the children look, notice, and after some time, they'll follow it up. So don't expect them to come round to your corner immediately, but after some time, they will come back to you. So the focus is, let's try to make the best of this wonderful life that God has given us, rather than wasting it on hours and hours of the internet without any productivity and without any concrete, cogent benefit.
absolutely, sir. I couldn't agree more with you. I think we have a lot more questions to be asked and discussions to be taken forward. But I think we are running short of time right now. So we're going to just end this podcast. I want to ask you one last thing. What is that word of wisdom which you would like to give to our youngsters today to be able to protect themselves from all these cyber threats that are happening, specifically on Instagram, where the videos are getting morphed and if women are getting targeted. So how can they be assured that they can safely, regulate their data, maybe not share their private moments on?
Well, my advice to the youngsters is very clear. The time has come where you need to take the goggles off your eyes, where you now need to start inculcating distrust and mistrust in whatever you see online, whatever you hear online, whatever you read online. Don't believe anything till such time you have independently authenticated the veracity or correctness of the same. Why? Because we are now being surrounded by fake news, deep fakes, it's false rumors all around. And if you are going to base your decision on something that you see online, maybe you will have to repent at leisure in the coming times. So that's the first thing I want you to keep in mind. Second thing, be studiously selfish and careful about your privacy and your private data. Nobody in the world is here to protect your privacy. You yourself have to protect your personal privacy and data privacy. Do not share your personal photographs, moments online. Do not be part of any calls which ask you to do activities which are sexual in nature. Do not trust people because at one point of time, somewhere on the internet, somebody is recording you. And once this recording comes up on the online ecosystem, then it's going to come and haunt you. And even if you have done nothing, then also be careful because deepfakes have come in. And now they'll be ready to make pornographic deepfakes about you and therefore circulate it to your family. The problem is cyber criminals have become both lazy and greedy at the same time. Post-COVID, they want to do least effort with maximum gain. And they would want to target you, hit you below the belt, one way or the other. So please go ahead and protect yourself. When we were small, our parents used to tell us, when you go out, don't mingle with strangers, don't trust them. I think that dictum is equally applicable today on the internet as well. Let's not learn to trust or believe any stranger because it's something that you are going to be potentially deceived at every possible moment. Also, we're all, since vomiting data, let's try to be consciously careful that we don't leave behind much electronic footprints. Why? Because these footprints are going to be used for the purposes of coming and targeting you. So you are going to be vulnerable. Protect yourself. Incorporate cybersecurity practices, procedures as part of your life. Adopt cyber resilience, cyber hygiene. Trust your family more than anyone else. Why? Because the online ecosystem is not full of friends, but full of foes who want to pull you down at the first instance possible. And finally, don't be very bombastic in your approaches. Don't broadcast too much. Why? It's better that let your work speak rather than you speaking about your work. And that can only happen if you do some quiet work and publish this online. Try to focus more on presenting your personal aspects online rather than your personal one. That's the only onus, the only promise that I want you to make to yourself. Once you start concentrating on the positive, constructive aspects of the internet, you quickly start realizing that the sky is the limit as far as you are concerned. And don't, never, ever, please publish anything online, either in an emotional state of mind or in a state of mind which is not normally your own. Let's stop really doing things which our common sense doesn't allow us to do. Let's do small baby steps to protect our data, our digital presence, our digital future, and let's look forward to these newly emerging technologies, both in terms of their constructive and their challenging aspects in terms of how we're going to tackle it.
I'm pretty sure our viewers must have taken down the notes and understood that that is how they can keep themselves safe and their family safe from all the cyber threats that are growing day by day. It was an amazing first episode, Dr. Duggal. Thank you so much for being a part of our podcast, for sharing so many insights. I really, really wish, even our viewers wish that this discussion could have gone longer. What a wonderful discussion. What a wonderful evening. I think I would look forward to host you again on our podcast show with more and more different aspects of cyber law and cyber security. Because the agenda of this podcast is to make people more aware and educate about these aspects which we do not talk much on social media.
Thank you for inviting me to your inaugural podcast. It's been a fascinating experience. Wishing you all the very best for this podcast, I guess.
Thank you so much, sir. And that wraps up today's episode. Stay tuned for more interesting discussions. Until then, take care.